Hi again, this is Professor Wills. We're continuing our mini lecture series about the indigenous art of North America. We are now landing in probably one of the most popular regions, and that is the American Southwest. And it's there you find a skill set in a particular art making arena, and that is pottery. It goes back to prehistoric times in the region. Continues as a highly desirable product through this day. There's a famous art market that happens in Santa Fe, New Mexico every year, or you could visit a living pueblo. Taos Pueblo is a great example, where these kinds of things can be purchased that are an ongoing practice. So let's take a look at the roots of this and the different functions and appearances of this very distinctive pottery practice. All right, some key concepts for you. So we are pivoting here to this part of the world just north of what we now call Mexico. The Pueblo peoples are associated with the Southwest, indigenous Southwest, and they're made up of groups like the Mogollon from southern Arizona, New Mexico, and northern Mexico, the Anasazi from the Four Corners region of the Southwest, which of course is made up of the meeting point of Utah, Colorado, New Mexico, and Arizona, and the Pima and Papago peoples of southern Arizona, essentially descendants of the Hokum. The environment is extreme, as you may know already. It's made up of deserts and mesas, mountain ranges of considerable elevation, and its famous valleys like the Grand Canyon. What's also distinctive about this part of the world is its proximity to Mesoamerica, to the south, which is likely where techniques of pottery making arrived. And it's there that you find these pots created for practical reasons, ritual reasons, sometimes for trade. And you find that they are widely traded and desired to this day. Moving on with our PowerPoint, let's go to the earliest time of pottery making and some examples of prehistoric Anasazi cooking vessels. What's interesting about these vessels in the image above is they almost look like woven baskets. We'll study this technique with basket making more when we get to California, but you can see this coil method where, again, woven baskets began at a base and through concentric circles of fiber and grasses, they're able to create vessels for storage, even for cooking. They were so tightly woven. And so it's not surprising to see that a similar technique is used for those of you who've had any kind of basic experience with pottery and forming long coils of snake and essentially laying concentric layers of those coils and pinching them together to form a kind of pinch pot technique. This is the technique that was used in the Southwest before the arrival of the potter's wheel. And for embellishment, you have a textured surface that mimics essentially the texture of fiber-based basket making. Later Anasazi pottery, if we just jump ahead a few centuries, shows the evolution of this practice. So, whereas the earliest vessels were for household needs like cooking and storage, you start to see a little bit more of a decorative embellishment of these clay vessels. You see perhaps geometric patterns, and then even more elaborate patterns with swirls and diamonds in a technique they develop that is based on using a mineral-based white slip as its background color, if you will, in addition to black mineral paint and vegetal-based pigments And once again, in tandem with the evolution of more sophisticated designs and patterns in pottery, you see that happening already in basket making. So again, the influence of basketry and the aesthetics of baskets is crossing over into this artistic technique as well. So these are vessels that become widely traded. And by the 12th century, they're producing them at such a large scale that they had actual kiln sites located away from the residential areas. And they're run by just dedicated specialists who pass on skills down generations. So you have these sort of pottery making dynasties in the American Southwest producing so many vessels because, not only for their community, but traded extensively in the region. So this excellence in pottery making continues. And then you look at this next example of vessels. These are called mimbres, black on white bowls. And they're named after the Mimbres Valley of the southwestern side of New Mexico. They date from the 10th to early 12th centuries. Sizes can range from 4 inches up all the way up to 16 in diameter. So what you find to the south in the American Southwest, the Mongolian peoples created this snow white slip and then used black mineral paint to create a plethora of deep bowls mixing abstract and figurative elements in tightly constructed compositions. These vessels have a graphic punch and innovative abstracted designs like you see on the example on the left, or very recognizable but highly stylized figurative elements like the iconic desert creature, the scorpion, in tandem with this beautiful abstracted black and white pattern that you see forming the band and edges of this particular vessel. These vessels, despite their sophistication and high-level design skill in their embellishment, were not traded at all. They were used ritualistically and kept within the community. You can see a variety of aesthetics. I'll show you a couple more charming examples. They can feature people and fish, toads, birds, and other animals interacting in ritualistic activities or in mythological contexts. So for instance, the image on the left shows the birthing of a human child. You have a little face appearing and it almost looks like a hand waving. I think it's just showing the emergence of life, of the miracle of birth happening on this particular vessel. And on the right, we have a wild rabbit or hare in tandem with this bladed weapon. The context is a little bit more mysterious, but each, of course, has a very stylized aesthetic, again, in that black and white palette with this linear pattern-based decorative feature along the bowl's rims. You may have noticed they all have in common holes in the middle. And you think, well, these vessels show a lot of cracks. Some of them have been restored, obviously. They would have been found in multiple pieces in many contexts. But the reason for that is these are known as kill holes. These vessels were created to be placed over the skulls of the dead. And then after that, the kill hole is intentionally made at that time so that the spirit of the deceased could rise up to the heavens. They found over 1,000 such bowls, and again, connected to such mortuary practices. Finally, I want to share with you a more colorful evolution of pottery in the American Southwest, also associated with the Anasazi. And this is known as the White Mountain Redware technique. So instead of a white slip, they have created a red slip based on, again, locally sourced minerals in addition to familiar black and white mineral paints and iron oxide glazes. So thinking, paints and now glazes, techniques are becoming more sophisticated and evolved. So this too is mostly an abstracted and stylized vessel. It's got a bulbous body and a neck, like most traditional global pots do. But it definitely has symbolism connected to the American Southwest. For instance, the step designs that you see here suggest the rising thunderclouds that are such a part of the extreme weather of the desert and mountain environments of the American Southwest. The white prongs, what do you think those are? Some of you may be cluing in. If you've got clouds, thunderclouds, you're going to have some lightning. So that's what those represent. And then in this sort of meander shape here, you have black dots on the white band there. That symbolizes rain. And of course, rain in places where there is no rain is a cultural focus, and the desire for rain is something that was appealed to their many polytheistic gods they worshipped in the American Southwest. So again, a real mastery not only in the production of these vessels, but also in the graphic illustration of them through the mix of figurative art and pattern as well. Thanks for joining me.